Hello and welcome to another episode of the Country Boss Perspective Podcast. My name is Nathaniel and I'm joined once again with my good friend Matt. How are your muscles this week, lad?
Yeah, knackered, mate. Knackered. So for those who didn't listen to our last episode, I'd just come off the back of competing in an amateur strongman competition. I was really happy. Had another one a week later, which I wouldn't recommend for any budding strongmen out there. It's a lot to put your body through. But yeah, I had another strongman competition this weekend just gone. Got second place though. Got my first trip to the podium. First event wins. Yeah, really, really happy. But my fucking God, do I hurt.
I think
Holy Jesus fucking Christ.
okay, that's enough of that.
That was a long ass applause.
We like celebrating you, but
Thanks, man.
I don't think this entire podcast is just glazing you.
Yeah, well, glaze away.
Right. Enough with the happy stuff. Let's talk crazy NHL news where the vast majority of people are going to be shaking their heads and booing. Leo Carlsson, the young centerman for the Anaheim Ducks. There's been issues with contracts, signing his contract, whatever. You'd expect that. Bit back and forth. And then out the blue, the Philadelphia Flyers put in an offer sheet for 5 years of $18 million a year. Comes out the blue, and our reaction just then was just mirrored how we were at the time. Speechless.
Yeah. I mean, this was the only place we could start, really. But yeah, I mean, it was so bizarre. Came completely out of left field, and like you said, there were players and teams. It's a negotiation, isn't it? No team ever lands on the first dollar value that gets thrown out there, and there's going to be a bit of back and forth. The team wants to make sure they can secure the player at like a reasonable price, but then the player's got an agent who needs to make sure that he's doing the best by his client. Also takes a little bit of
Himself.
I was going to say, also takes a little bit of a slice off the top as well. And by all accounts, they were kind of progressing towards somewhere in the kind of $12 to $13 million range, which I think for someone like Leo Carlsson, I think is a completely fair kind of contracts negotiation to have. I think Carlsson had an outstanding year last year. I think we saw a lot of guys from Carlson's draft class, him, Bedard, Fantilli, a lot of those guys really took a step in their third year last year. And then out of the blue, the Flyers throw this ludicrous $18 million a year for 5 years, which would make him the highest paid player in the NHL for now. And it really, really puts the Anaheim Ducks in a bit of a bind. So for those who are unfamiliar with how offer sheets work, basically, for restricted free agents, teams can submit, what are called offer sheets, and basically the player has to agree to sign that offer sheet with the team that are offering it. And depending on the dollar value of that offer, the current team who that player plays for, so Anaheim in this case, are entitled to compensation in the way of draft picks. So if Leo Carlsson ends up in Philadelphia on this 5-year, $18 million deal, the Flyers will have to give up 4 first-round picks to the Anaheim Ducks. Now, these have to be the team's own first-round picks. They can't be picks that they acquire from XYZ trades. So there's that aspect. Now, the current team can match that offer if they want to. So Philly can offer 18 million for 5 years. Anaheim can say, we don't want him to go to Philadelphia. We'll offer him 18 million for 5 years, and Leo Carlsson can stay in Anaheim. The only problem is that really, really straps the Ducks with $5-6 million in cap, more than they were probably planning on spending. So Philly have just thrown a real spanner in the works here.
Uh, the Anaheim have played a game of fuck around and find out. Um, it's Carlson for me is not worth $80 million in a minute. I don't think anybody can really argue with that. But again, it's a young sentiment. We've been talking about rebuilding teams coming off the draft. You always build around your young sentiment. And Ducks now, they have for me they have to match it. They're going to lose Cutter Gauthier because of it. They, as we'll go on to, they've lost a lot of players this season, and Vivek is going through the ringer right now, potentially taking the heat off of Toronto, which is and Edmonton, which those two teams are probably very happy about. I just think Philly is swinging their junk here with it. I think they've had a few trades back and forth between each other recently, but yeah, Leo Carlsson, I think wanted 15. I think the Ducks only wanted 12, 12 and a half. They should have had this done, tied up, and they probably didn't expect this to happen. Neither of them probably expected this to happen. And I think it was Elliot Friedman that said that offer sheets go in for restricted free agents all the time. You're not even aware of it. Like they go in as a matter of par for course, just to say, "Oh, do you fancy this now? Okay, right, see you bye." It's not even newsworthy. But this time, Carlson signed it,
Yeah,
and
it's crazy because you really don't see high ticket offer sheets go in that often. For players like Leo Carlsson, and you might see we saw St. Louis did some offer sheets for, I think it was Broberg and Holloway, I think, from Edmonton a couple of years ago, and by all accounts, offer sheets are going to start becoming a bit more common, I think, because the free agent market is really dwindling at the moment. So your options to acquire top end talent is either via trade or via offer sheets or through the draft. So I really don't know kind of what this means. I haven't kind of actually checked for sort of an update on this. I think as it stands, I don't think Anaheim have officially said that they're gonna match it. But like you said, it's probably going to cost them Cutter Gauthier, which is a real problem. But it's kind of either way. I think Anaheim kind of lose in this situation because you either lose Leo Carlsson, who was the second overall pick in his respective draft, or you end up losing your kind of franchise winger, who you gave up, kind of Trevor Zegras, I think was a part of that deal. I think maybe Jamie Drysdale was part of that. I can't remember the exact ins and outs of that particular trade. But they're going to lose something massive here regardless. And Anaheim, we're going to come on to sort of teams who've sort of won and lost during the off season so far, kind of through the draft, through free agency. The Ducks have lost a lot. You look at their defensive core. They lost Jacob Trouba, they lost Radko Gudas, they lost John Carlson. They've also lost Wilson, McTavish, Zellweger. They've lost a lot of guys already. They've signed Pavel Minchikov to an extension, 5 years at 7.2 million. I know you're kind of grimacing. I don't hate that. I think at the moment, obviously, contracts all look a little bit weird because everyone seems like they're getting paid a bit much, but I think it will balance out over the next couple of years. Is Minchukov kind of in that 7 to 9 region that we saw the likes of Luke Hughes sign for and guys like that? Maybe, maybe not. I think maybe 7.2's a little higher. Maybe would have gone like 6.5, but really we're looking at kind of 700k here. I mean, that's nothing compared to the extra few million that they potentially have to pay out to Leo Carlsson. And they've ended up putting themselves into a really, really difficult spot here of Anaheim because they've currently got very little in the way of defensemen. They're going to lose a lot of their cap to Carlsson, you would have thought. And I just don't know where the Ducks go from here. I think they are one of the teams who are abjectly worse than when the season ended last year, which is a real shame because it's a team that we both really, really liked. And they had a really good year last year. You know, they made the playoffs. They knocked Edmonton out. They had a really good show of it. And it seems as though they've taken 3, 4 steps back.
Yeah. I think the Ducks' bill has come due.
Nice.
No, joking aside, the this team was the young, fresh. They signed a couple of older guys last off season to like round off the roster, and it was very well rounded. Now, it's hard to run it back the same every year, but just looking at this, Carlson is obviously 21. He's young. But if he goes, Granlund 34, Troy Terry 28, Kreider 35, Killorn 36, Vetrano 32, AJ Greer, who is the oldest 29-year-old in the league, Ryan Perling at 27, Jeff Malott at 29, and then you got Beckett Seneca at 20, and Cutter Gauthier at 22. So all of a sudden, that young forward core is now very old, very like middling of the road, milk toast, like fine in the NHL, but not that young, fresh things like Montreal or like another young team, if that makes sense. But and obviously the defenseman got Jackson Lacombe at 25. Yeah, fine. It, I just think this team. I'm gonna say I think it's gone the wrong direction in every single point this off season so far. Like it looks like they're prioritizing Simon Mintyukov over signing Carlson, and there's a world where they could lose Carlson and Gauthier anyway, because I think they've only got 9 million cap space.
Yeah.
But,
Politely
this
speaking,
team go from
Nathaniel,
one I like to one I don't.
they're fucked.
Yeah,
They could have a
she's screaming
real
without a paddle.
they could have a real problem here. Um, so yeah, I don't see. I mean, they've still got some nice players on that team. You know, they've got Dostal locked up long term. Jackson Lacombe's a fantastic defenseman. Was brilliant last year. But I mean, you're kind of looking at Minchikov and Lacombe, and then there really isn't a lot else on that back end. Obviously, they've traded Mason McTavish now as well. Um, so that's another one of their kind of young forwards gone. Yeah, I don't know. They've had a little bit of a collapse here.
Yeah, and prospects probably better than me. There's only McQueen that I'm sort of aware of that'll. I've said I've just got Klepov as well, but it's mainly just going to be McQueen that's coming up this year.
Yeah, if he does, I mean, I think McQueen might be someone who maybe does another year. I believe he's playing in the NCAA at the moment. I think he maybe does another year. We might see him for the last kind of 10 games of the season, this year. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think that he's going to come in and kind of completely alter that franchise. So yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how the Ducks kind of move forward. From here. I don't know if they'll maybe look to do a sign and trade, or whether or not they just take the 4 first round draft picks and go with it. I mean, they could always spin some of those draft picks for someone else. They could maybe make a run for Dylan Larkin, with those draft picks. But I just don't know at the moment. I don't know which direction it's going to go. They've been put in a real bind, and I think this is kind of a monumental moment, really, as far as things kind of go regarding offer sheets. And I think we're going to start seeing a lot more of them over the next few years.
Yeah, Should we move on to a team that knows how to handle their shit?
Yeah,
Well, it appears to.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. One of the teams that has got significantly better, I think, through this off season, and that's the Washington Capitals, Nathaniel. And as per the video on social media, I'm back, baby.
I'm back, baby. He's at this point. He's going to be playing till he's 50. Like he's just going to keep going and keep going. And the fact he signed a contract for 4.25 mil is just insane. But he's back for another year, making decent money to continue to hit slap shots from the point.
We haven't actually mentioned that we're talking about Alexander Ovechkin here. For those who
Oh,
weren't
come on.
already aware.
Yeah. I mean, there's not much to really say, it's just other than the running it back. Like, one of these years now, it could be this year, he might sign another contract for next year. At one point, he will blow a tire and it'll just be a slug on ice. And at that point, it'll be time to say goodbye. But I hope he does. I hope he leaves on his own terms, playing at a high level when he
Yeah,
goes, rather than
yeah, yeah. I
playing
mean,
paddle.
it's like you said, a really team friendly deal here. And you know what? I reckon prior to the moves that the Capitals made, I think that Ovechkin was probably ready to call it a day. But then the Capitals went out and they got Alex Tuck, 5 year deal, 10.5 million. They then had Jordan Kyrou, in a deal involving, I think it was McMichael, a few other pieces. But Jordan Kyrou arrives from the St. Louis Blues. They then also added Boone Jenner in free agency, which, okay, like I know he was a captain in Columbus. 33 years old, 5.75 million for the next sort of 4 years. At this point in his career as a depth center, absolutely outstanding. But you look down that forward core: Tuck, Dubois, Kyrou, Tom Wilson, Boone Jenner, Dylan Strome, Ovechkin, Alexei and Ilya Protas, Beauvillier, Ethan Frank, Ryan Leonard, Justin Sordif. They've got an absolutely outstanding forward core in Washington. You also look, they've got Chikrin and Favari and another year of Cole Hudson as well. They brought in Timothy Liljegren from San Jose as well during free agency. They've got Rasmus Sandin and Matt Roy, and this is a team who's made quite a significant jump. And then the icing on the cake is you get another year of Ovechkin, who still scored, I think, over 30 goals last year, even at his ripe old age. And I think he's probably seen what the Capitals were doing and thought, I'll stick around for another year of that, I think.
Yeah, I really like this team. It's teams like this, a bit of the Vegas thing of it, but obviously a bit nicer about stuff. But they just know what they're doing. They manage their rosters like cap space to like perfectly. They've got a well-rounded roster, mixture of experience, middle-aged, like in their prime players, and youngsters, both in attack and defense. They got two decent goaltenders. They got a great head coach. They had a bit of a slower year last year, but I think they're going to be right back in the mix and one of the early favourites, I think, for in that Metro.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a division as well that's in a little bit of flux at the moment. The Rangers are struggling a little bit. We still don't really know what Pittsburgh are going to be next year. We don't know if the Islanders were a flash in the pan or not. The Blue Jackets kind of up and down. Obviously, they've lost Jenner now, but yeah, and I know there's been a lot of kind of protracted talks about Werenski. It sounds like Werenski's staying in Columbus. So I think there's a real opportunity for them there to have a really good run at this Metro division. Obviously, they've got the Carolina Hurricanes in their way, but they'll be feeling really, really confident that there's a playoff spot available for them there after they missed out kind of right at the last year. They just fell in the final few games and missed the playoffs, didn't they? So yeah, it was. I'm really really impressed with what the Capitals have done, and yeah, I'm excited to see this team going into next season.
Shall we talk arbitration?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, there's only one player to really discuss without. I mean, there's a lot of players who file for arbitration, but good lord, the Jason Robertson contract saga drags on, and he has filed for arbitration. Nathaniel.
As if this league could not get any more complicated for the way they do their contracts and just the build up of it. Like, I love this sport so much, but Lord, they make it difficult for new people to get into it. So, arbitration is a thing for restricted free agents. So, players that essentially the team has a higher degree of control about what happens with them, as opposed to unrestricted free agents who they can either choose to sign a contract with their team or check out free agency. But naturally speaking, people don't always get on or don't agree with the contracts that they should sign or how much they should get paid. And therefore, a player can file for arbitration where a third party comes in, and you'll probably be better explaining this than me, but ultimately decides you should pay this player this amount of money for either 1 or 2 years, because that's what's their worth. How far wrong am I?
No, you are pretty much kind of on the right lines. It's in essence, it's like marriage counselling for a player and a team. So player wants X amount of money. Team aren't willing to reach that dollar value. They only want it. So in the case of Jason Robertson, he wants in and around $14 to $15 million, if depending on what you read. The Stars only want to offer him 12 to 12 and a half. They're in a complete stalemate. So Robertson files for arbitration. The arbitrator goes, right, based off of your stats, Jason Robertson, and based off of what other players who are similar to you statistically around the league, and based off of your age and your experience, we're going to come out to a figure that we think you can sign either a 1 or 2 year deal at this figure. And it usually ends up being somewhere in the middle. So, the arbitrator might say it's 13,750,000 or something like that. Now, the team can either accept that arbitrator's offer and say, yep, okay, you've said it's going to be 13.75. Fine, we'll pay Jason Robertson that. Or alternatively, the team can go, fuck no, we're not paying that. That's still too much money. The problem is if the team then walk away from that arbitration offer, that player then becomes an unrestricted free agent as opposed to a restricted free agent. And as a result, they can then walk away for nothing. Now, what usually tends to happen during arbitration is that the teams usually end up someone will give. So they'll end up meeting in the middle. They might end up going, we can only sign a 1 or 2 year deal through arbitration. How about we offer you a 7 year deal at $13.621 million or something like that. So, something super specific. And the player kind of goes, fine, you know what? We'll sign it. We'll get it done. My future's secured. But with Robertson in particular, it's been quite clear that Robertson wants to stay in Dallas. He's already rejected the Blues. He's already rejected the Kraken. His preference, it would seem, is that he wants to stay in Dallas, but he wants to get paid what he believes what he is due. Yeah. And the Stars don't want to pay him that. Now, that's got to be a really difficult spot for Robertson, as the place that you want to be and you value yourself at a certain figure, and the team's basically saying, you're not worth it, we want to pay you this. and that it probably, I'm sure people get over it, and people will say it's just business, and don't take it to heart or anything. But I would find it really hard to believe that some relationships aren't soured on both sides. I think the team probably feels a little bit, you want to call it stabbed in the back or anything, that Robertson's taking them to arbitration. But Robertson will look at it and say, well, this is the amount I wanted and you weren't willing to pay me it. So, we'll let the arbitrator decide. So that's where we are with everything at the moment. Now, I don't know if I am still of the opinion that I think Dallas will get this done. Obviously, they traded Maverick Bork, they traded Lyubushkin. I wouldn't have thought that they would have made those trades unless it was with the idea that they could free up the space to sign Robertson. But as we're seeing with around the league, crazy things are out there happening. It's worth mentioning as well that when a player files for arbitration, they're no longer eligible for offer sheets. So no one can now offer sheet Jason Robertson. So you can't have a team offer him 5 years at $18 million for 4 first-round picks. So filing for arbitration is a very common practice in the NHL. It is very rare that it happens for a player of Robertson's caliber. It usually ends up happening for kind of your lesser restricted free agents, when maybe you could be jostling with a team over 300,000-400,000, not necessarily millions. But we'll see how that element of the saga plays out. Obviously, there's a few other players who have filed for arbitration, Nathaniel's, but I can't imagine any of them carry as much baggage as the Jason Robertson one does.
No, I think the only player that Donald Trump might feel he has to interfere in a sporting procedure is probably Jason Robertson.
Oh, God.
But some names that have also gone to arbitration, I'll just list them. We don't really need to deep dive them. But I guess it's Peyton Krebs in Buffalo. You got Jet Greaves and Cole Sillinger in Columbus. That's quite interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Akira Schmid, who was just traded to the Panthers from Vegas, has also gone to arbitration. Kirby Doc from the Canadiens has gone to arbitration after being offered a two-way contract, which, again, another complicated factor. Some sort of career NHLers will sign a one-way contract, which means they can't be sent down to the minors at any time. Those who are sort of the bottom line or depth pieces, you'll see players come up and then drop back down. They're on two-way contracts. Kirby Doc, love him or hate him, well, he thinks he's a one-way player. Montreal don't.
He is a one-way player. Absolutely, he is. This is, and this isn't even the kind of Chicago bias in me or anything. I know he was taken 3rd overall by Chicago. Actually, however things come around full circle, in that draft in particular, I wanted the Blackhawks to draft Bowen Byram at 3rd overall. Shock horror, these things all end up coming back around, and Bowen Byram's now a Chicago Blackhawk. But Kirby Doc isn't a two-way guy. I know he's had his problems with injuries. I know he got kind of shit on by the fan base for a poor display in the playoffs. He then came out in the next game and, single-handedly dragged them over the line in one of their games. So, yeah, I think him being offered a two-way deal, I think, is as insulting as a contract offer as you can get for a player of his caliber. I don't even think Colton Doc is a two-way contract kind of guy. I think even his brother is a one-way deal player. But anyway, please continue. Ridiculous from Montreal.
You're really passionate about this. Wow,
I just
can't
think
believe
it's
that
ridiculous.
this is the thing that's got you fired up. You Kirby Doc Stan, look at you. While we're on the Blackhawks, actually, I forgot to mention it earlier, but Bedard is also becoming restricted free agent. If I was any team in this league with any kind of cap space, throw in a $20 million offer sheet in for Connor Bedard and just let's fucking go. Let's do this.
I have seen this discourse a fair amount. I think
This is where head on his shoulders. We'll go. We'll go through it.
No, I think that look, a player can be sent an offer sheet. A player has to sign the offer sheet. By all accounts, Connor Bedard has reiterated numerous times that he has no intention of leaving Chicago. Chicago's where he wants to play, and obviously teams will reach out to a player's agent before they submit an offer sheet, and I would imagine that they will have asked his agent, oh, we're considering sending an offer sheet in. And they've gone, yeah, don't bother because he's going to be re-signing in Chicago. I know there hasn't been anything official done yet, but I'm sure that deal is probably as good as done as you can expect. Now, does the Leo Carlsson 18 million, does that potentially throw a bit of a spanner in the works for the contract negotiation? Potentially. But yeah, I don't think an offer sheet was ever on the table for Bedard because it was a genuine concern. When it happened, I was like, oh shit, someone might go and offer 20 million and not really with an intention of having it, but obviously Chicago would have to match that. They can't let him walk. So yeah, I don't think it was an offer on the table as such. I could be wrong. Someone might offer sheet him tomorrow, but we'll see. But in my opinion, I think a contract extension is as good as done. They're just working out the final details.
Yeah, I think Vancouver, 25 million. Do it. Just do it. God, that'd be emergency pod material. Drop everything.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, right. The only other two players I'd say is, well, I guess three is worth mentioning for this arbitration: Jamie Drysdale, Trevor Zegras in Philadelphia. Both two young players. They've probably just seen the Flyers offer sheet. Carlson and goes, we want his money now.
Yeah. Yeah, I imagine it's probably had a slight impact on their next contract, and that's probably why they're at arbitration. But again, I imagine they'll probably come to some sort of agreement there.
Conor McMichael also been traded to the Blues. It seems to be a common thing as well. You get traded to a new team, immediately you start scrapping over contract lengths or pay amounts, and you go to arbitration. But yeah, should we take a quick break and we'll be right back?
Yeah, yeah.
And we're back. Going to talk some general contracts, free agent signings, bit some trades here and there. Let's round out the league where things are at, because there's been, start of this period of the off season, there's so many changes, so many transactions. We'll cover most of them. We're not going to cover every single sort of entry level, like one level, 1 year contracts for minimum wage for the most part. But yeah,
Some of the big ones.
some of the big ones, some of the big ones. Should we start with some contracts or some trades?
We'll start with some contracts. So some unrestricted free agents moving around the league. Like we said, free agency is a little bit difficult at the moment because teams have a lot of money. So teams aren't necessarily, a lot of guys aren't hitting free agency like they used to. But one of the big ones, I think, that kind of came out of thin air. Well, not really thin air as much. I think it was maybe getting mooted on the day that he was going to be moving. Sergei Bobrovsky, two-time Stanley Cup champion. I believe he must have picked up a Vezina trophy at some point in his career. He signs Bobrovsky! I had no idea you even had that on the soundboard. That's outstanding. Signs a $3 by $7 million contract in Toronto. Now, the money, I don't know. Look, at the end of the day, they're going to be paying Bobrovsky until he's 42? I think he's 39 at the moment, is Bobrovsky. I don't love the 3 years, but I like the $7 million. And there's always ways to buy out a contract or move a contract on, or there's ways out. But the Maple Leafs go out and get themselves a goalie. Bobrovsky can tandem with Anthony Stolarz, two guys who have worked together in the past at Florida. They know each other very well. I think they will probably try and split the. I imagine it would probably be as close to a 50-50 split as they can in Toronto with the games there. It all kind of depends on Stolarz's health and his fitness. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, instant thoughts of Bobrovsky in Toronto, Nathaniel.
You say instant thoughts, and I'm
Well,
going to do the exact opposite because I'm about to complex this issue tenfold, right? I want to bring in two other players here, Freddie Anderson and Sam Clavai. The reason I'm bringing these goalkeepers into it is just the sort of the market and the value of these contracts being signed. The Toronto Maple Leafs, the Edmonton Oilers, are perennial teams who are all firepower, but then can't save a goal, like can't stop a puck to save their life. So it's a big point of need, and they've both made the thousandth attempt at trying to fix this problem in this past few years. They just thrown shit at the wall and seeing what sticks. Toronto has gone for a 37-year-old Bobrovsky and given him $7 million a year for 3 years. Bobrovsky, who had a steady year in Florida last year, but obviously coming off the back of 2 Stanley Cups before that. Has he still got it? Probably yes. We'll see if he suffers the Toronto curse. The Edmonton Oilers also needed a keeper, and they've signed Freddie Anderson to a 1-year, $1 million deal, which I think is potentially a lot better value. It doesn't impact their cap. Obviously, probably a dip in quality over Bobrovsky at this stage. For me, I think it's a move Toronto needed to make. I do think they've probably given too much money over for said change. Again, time will tell, as will always be with contracts and trades and things like that. But the only other thing I was going to bring up is Sam Clavai, who performed extremely well in the Olympics, has been playing for the worst team in the AHL for the most part, the Iowa Wild, has come out and said, I want a chance to sign and play in the NHL. So he signs a 1-year, $850,000 contract in Toronto, which happened before the Bobrovsky trade or the sign. So now, just for Hlavai, who's left Minnesota, who Gustafson's just had surgery, probably miss a fairly decent chunk of the regular season in Minnesota, and they've signed Calvin Pickard to back up Wallstead. I'm scared about that. But he signed a 1-year contract in Toronto to sit now behind Bobrovsky and Stolarz, who aren't going to be, unless they get rid of Stolarz somewhere, which I don't think they will.
I wouldn't have thought so, no.
So now he's just going to be sat in, the Marlies in Toronto. So at least he's closer to the Maple Leafs facility. But he could have, I don't know, Florey should have stayed in Minnesota and backed up Wallstead, I think, especially for that
Yeah,
contract he signed.
yeah, I think so. I think it was a slightly disappointing move there. Kind of, I can understand Levi's point of wanting to play, wanting to get some experience. But I think he'd probably be better served of sticking around in Minnesota, especially given that they've got Bobrovsky, they've got Stolarz. I think they traded Wall. I think they also traded away Dennis Hildeby as well. And they also have, I forget his name. They've got the young goaltender. It's got about 16 letters. It's like Akhmadulov or something. Um, I forget his name. He made like 2 appearances for them last season, but he's like 23. Another kind of quite highly rated goalie prospect in Toronto. I believe he's still there. So again, they've kind of they've got like an absolute logjam of goalies there. But yeah, bizarre. Now, I wanted to touch on the I wanted to touch on the San Jose Sharks, my favorite team. How they fuck. Now, the reason
It might be my favourite team.
the reason I get my
Mm.
back up about the San Jose Sharks is because they just get absolutely glazed for every little move that they make, every little thing that they do. And
Being bitter.
no, well, I'm not being bitter as such, and I'm going to explain my rationale, even with things like the draft, right? But obviously, I would have loved to have, seen the Chicago Blackhawks with the 200th overall pick take a flyer on the 7'1" Alex Karmanov, right? He didn't. He went to San Jose at 201, right? I don't know if you've seen any of the footage of training camp of this guy, um, but people were like, "Oh, holy shit! This guy's never playing in the big leagues. He can't move." But at the time that the draft pick was made, everyone went, "That is an A+ draft pick. They might well have drafted
A
the
plus
next
seventh round.
the next Zdeno Chara," and it's like, "Oh, come on, give it a rest." And then they go out and they bring in Mason Marchment and Jacob Trouba in free agency. Now, I want to caveat this by saying I really like Mason Marchment. I really like Jacob Trouba. They are both guys I would have loved the Blackhawks to bring in. But Jacob Trouba for 4 years at $8.25 million, absolutely not.
They've also
Mason Mar-
brought in somebody
uh,
else.
yeah, oh, we're gonna get to that on the trades as well. Whole yeah, and Mason Marchment at 5 years at 6.75. I don't have as much of an issue with that. I like Marchment. He's one of those guys who can play all four lines, any situation. He's a pain in the arse. He's like 6'5", I think, is Mason Marchment. Bigger guy, provides some insulation for some of those young forwards. But they've gone and they've brought in some decent free agents, absolutely. But the amount that they have paid these guys, and I know that there's an aspect to it where you just have to kind of get the deal over the line, and I'm sure that there were a lot of suitors for Jacob Trouba. I have no doubt, and but if 4 by 8.25 was the demand, I am extremely glad from a Chicago standpoint. I'm very glad they stayed well away from that deal. Really glad they stayed well away from that deal, because that contract will be a problem in 2 years.
I don't think it will.
Okay.
San Jose, and we will do, like, as we go further into the off season, we're going to deep dive rosters and contract situations and maybe rank these teams for how they're doing in that respect from our point of view. But in a quick flash in the pan, they've got, after all of these signings that they've made, they've still got 12 million in cap space.
Mm-hmm.
They've got players who are due to be, who aren't even on the team. Logan Couture hitting the cap for 8 mil. Mason Marchment at 6.75 at the moment is the highest paid forward. They've got to sign Celebrini and Smith at the end of this season coming up.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have a lot more space opening up. They haven't got that much capital in players. And I think by the time of the crunch time comes round, like Trouba's only 32. He's probably got 4 years of decent player left. 8.25 for a guy who he's moved around the past few years, but has been solid. He's been a good defenseman. Um, San Jose's been a bit soft in the defensive department, I would say, and Trouba is going to add that grit.
Yeah.
Slight overpay, yes. It's not probably worth 8.25, but if this was a 7.5 million, that instantly for me makes it a great deal. So then when you add in on, it's only 750 on a year.
Yeah.
I just think with some of these other contracts these defensemen are signing,
Yeah. Absolutely.
I
And
think
that's
that's a very solid.
and that's me. That's me being bewildered at a 4 year, $8.25 million deal, coming from following a team who's paying Bowen Byram 12.5 for the next 6 years. That deal might end up being an absolute stonking deal. He might end up being a premier first defenseman. But yeah, I just think that it was a lot for Trouba. Don't mind the Marchment deal as much. It's the other addition they made on the defensive end. That's the one that I have a problem with, and we'll get into when we sort of move into some trades. Um, but speaking of defensemen, we saw Simon Nemec sign a 5-year, $7.25 million extension. No qualms in that for me. I think that is pretty much market value. Um, I don't know about you. No
I'm rooting for the
issues.
camels to pigeons here, but Simon Nemec for 7.25 is a way better deal for that player than Bowen Byram's contract in Chicago.
Maybe, maybe we'll see.
Infinitely better in my mind. Is Nemec that much below Byram at this point, do you think?
Uh, in my opinion, in terms of the players they are right now, yeah. When all's said and done, maybe not. But I think Nemec's 5-year deal, I think what that will do is take him to his final year of RFA status, maybe. Players are getting very good at kind of, controlling the length of their contracts, to make sure that they maximize the amount of money in their career. So I have no doubt that Nemec's next deal will probably be sort of in that 12.5, 13, 14 million ballpark, obviously depending on how he plays. But I think that's a good signing. At 7.25, I think Nemec absolutely fills a need there.
Obviously, it depends on the greater team around him, but I think that's a really good deal.
Yeah. Um, the Pittsburgh Penguins have extended Igor Chinnikov 3 years, 6.25. Again, I don't have many qualms with this at all. I think Chinnikov played really, really well for Pittsburgh last year. I think probably better than a lot of people maybe expected. But he came in, added an extra layer of kind of offensive pop. And we're in a period of time in the NHL now where even guys that play, I'm not necessarily entirely sure where Chinnikov plays in the lineup in Pittsburgh, but you're seeing guys on the third line making $5-6 million a year. So, Chinnikov is one of the younger forwards that Pittsburgh have. I've got no issues with Chinnikov there for that price.
Yeah, it's a good value, good term, good to see them through the end of the Crosby Malkin era.
Mm,
And I mean, if he plays well, he could set himself up for a very good payday afterwards. But that's a very solid contract for him and for the team.
for sure, for sure. One of my favourite kind of signings, in terms of contracts and this off season, is Maverick Bork, 6 years at 5.5 million. I think that is an absolute steal. I think Bork is a fantastic young player. Was very much obviously playing a bit further down the lineup in Dallas. That previous $1 million contract hit that he had, he very much did that as a favour to the team. But I think the player that Maverick Bork is right now is probably worth $5.5 million, let alone what he's going to be 3-4 years into this contract. I think the Predators have done some nice business over the summer so far, and I think that Bork is a really, really nice piece, tied up for the long term at a really, really reasonable cap hit.
Agreed. I also like what the Predators have done this offseason. I've seen new management in there coming from Colorado. They've signed quite a few Avalanche players. Now going after other teams in their division. With the Stars signing Maverick Bork. I just think the Predators, I mean, the Central's an already very competitive division. The Mammoth have also done well this off-season. Obviously, the Blackhawks are hoping make some more progress. Winnipeg were expecting a bounce back. There's only going to be so many spaces at the top of this division.
Mm.
Do we see the stars, especially with what's happening with Robertson, lost Maverick Book? I mean, I don't know. Maybe the stars are the one to fall.
Maybe.
Or
Yeah, yeah.
maybe it's difficult, but there's only so many playoff places in that division, and all these teams seem to be making the right moves
Yeah.
at this moment in time.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Um, John Carlson signs a 2-year, $8.5 million deal, not in Carolina, but in Tampa Bay. Um, Now, we touched on this in the last episode. Obviously, they gave up a sixth round pick to jump the queue. We said it didn't necessarily guarantee that he was going to sign in Carolina. And that ended up, obviously being the case, and he's decided to sign in Tampa. I like that move for John Carlson. I like that move for Tampa. I think 2 by 8.5, I think is probably what John Carlson would have cost you. I think this will probably be his final deal before he probably calls it a day. In the NHL, and it just adds a bit of defensive stability, to Tampa, who did have quite a lot of injuries on the back end last year. So, yeah, I think they've maybe gone. I don't know. Maybe it all came down to an extra 500,000. Maybe Carolina were only willing to offer 7.5 or 8 or something to that effect. But yeah, I think 2 years at 8.5 for a player of Carlson's caliber, I think is exactly what the Lightning need right now.
It's interesting, really, because I was like, how has Tampa afforded this deal? And then I've just had a quick look at their things. I'm like, right, that makes sense. Um, Darren Radish has also signed an $8.5 million contract.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who would you like? Obviously, Radish has signed an 8-year contract, which is certainly something. But John Carlson, going back to actually him, I think he was after 10 mil, and the Ducks let him walk because they didn't want to pay him that. And he's ended up signing for the money that the Ducks were probably offering to pay him anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we just talked about the Ducks and where they're at. Could they have afforded John Carlson at this point? Probably not. Um, I just think for Tampa, it's I don't know. Maybe they're viewing this as a window. They want to sign Radish to a long-term contract. They've signed a player who, at the minute, is probably playing just as well. Different kind of player. Victor Hedman is maybe on the decline. Obviously, he had some personal issues last year. But yes, it's one of them where I keep my head spinning. I can't track if this is going to be good or not, if I'm honest.
Yeah, and I think in that comparison from Carlson to Radish, I think, obviously what you got from Radish last year was a breakout year. He very much took advantage of some opportunities that came his way in Tampa. Um, but what you have with John Carlson is 15 years of track record of him being a very, very good player. Darren Radish, even at his age in his late 20s, still only has like 3 years of NHL experience. So I think, 8 years at 8.5. I mean, it might well work out well in Toronto, and I hope for Darren Radish's sake it does. Um, but I just don't think that was probably going to be a figure that Tampa were gonna offer him, because he is still, to an extent, a bit of an unknown commodity. Whilst you can pay 2 years of 8.5 million to John Carlson, you know exactly what you're going to get with him. He is
It is a
he
good
is
move, actually.
he is just about as known as a commodity as you can get, sort of, in this league. Cup champion, adds a wealth of experience, and takes a little bit of pressure off of Hedman as well. I think, it doesn't necessarily mean that he has to carry the full weight of that defensive core on his own back. He can kind of share the load a little bit with Carlson. And I also saw the 10 million kind of figure being sort of floated around. Um, I think for Tampa to get him over the line for 8.5 is a good bit of business. Anaheim are probably pissed because that is probably what they were offering him, or something similar. But as well with Carlson his last couple of years, he probably wants one more run at a cup. I think he would have been
It's a
better
great
served.
John Cooper player.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Now, would Carlson have a better shot at a cup going to Carolina? I would have maybe thought so, but each their own. I think he'll be he will play exactly how we'll expect him to play in Tampa, and it'll be a nice bit of business there. In terms of the kind of the sort of big money moves, that kind of covers most of them really. I mean, Jamie Benn signed for one more year at 850K. That's just one more year for that. Frees up a bit of space for Dallas. They keep Jamie Benn around to play bottom 6 minutes. Zuccarello signed a 1 year, $1 million deal with the LA Kings. The LA Kings, who
Bit more on that.
just added a whole bunch of fucking pensioners to their roster this offseason. I mean, the average age of that Kings roster has absolutely blown through the roof. I've got no idea what they're going for there.
Especially with Zuccarello, you see a 1-by-1 and the impact he's had on the Wild. I'm good that he's gone.
Oh yeah.
But it's not a 1-by-1. On the salary, it's a 1-by-1. If he plays 10 games for the Kings, he gets a $4 million bonus, which is
Right.
why the Wild could not afford him. So yeah, I wanted to put that in there, and almost to a certain extent trick you, because you see Zuccarello for a 1-by-1 and you just think that's potentially a good deal. And then you hear the bonus for 10 games played. He's going to end up like Harvey Elliott at Villa in the Prem. Uh, he plays to one game. They might play him in their most important
in the
nine
most
games of the
important
year.
nine. Yeah, just to avoid paying him the last little bit. Yeah, I did actually see that as well when I was looking up Ovechkin's contract. Obviously, he signed for 4.25, but he does have 4.75 million in available bonuses for him this year. So. It gets a little bit murky, doesn't it, with the fact that bonuses don't directly impact the cap and that sort of thing. Yeah, it all gets a little bit um,
Even more complicated.
yeah, one of the fun ones that I saw, and we've seen Florida do this relentlessly, but the Florida Panthers bring back Radko Gudas on a 6 year, $1.5 million contract. I think that is, I mean, how old's Radko Gudas now? He's 36. So that contract would take him up to 42 years of age. I mean, we saw it with Brad Marchand, didn't we? And all of these kind of like, we're going to sign him for this extended period of time. And then we'll probably just, chalk off the last few years. They'll buy him out, probably 3 years into that deal and go from there. But look, loopholes are there to be exploited, and if you have a team that can exploit them, fair play to them.
Yeah, that is a signing for sure. I just I want Agudas to go to Toronto.
Oh,
there's
it'd have been good
some
fun.
rumours flying around, and that would have just been him and Matthews in training would have just been. Oh.
Fight to the death on day
Anyway,
one.
missed opportunity. But yeah, Agudas obviously played for the Panthers, so it's not quite a big change kind of thing, but he suits that team.
Yeah, yeah, they are going to be. You add Gudas, obviously they've added Brady Kachuk. They are going to just be the most nasty team to play next year. They're going to be an absolute disaster. Um, Trades, Nathaniel. We've seen some trades go down around the league. The first one to start on. We touched on the San Jose Sharks before. The San Jose Sharks have traded for Darnell Nurse from the Edmonton Oilers in a fact that goes to show that no contract in the NHL is ever untradeable. Because the Oilers have retained not a single penny
What
of this contract, and the Sharks have sent Shakir McMadoulin and Zach Sharp there as well. You know, McMadoulin is a good defensive prospect as well. I don't really know what the Sharks' thinking is for this, but that's $18-ish million locked up in Trouba and Nurse. It's quite a lot of money. I'm not a massive fan of this trade at all. Sharks aside, not a huge fan of this package. Great for the Oilers, but no, not really sure what the Sharks are getting at here.
especially when they're from the same division, you're kind of actively helping. They could have just gone, no, we're not trading for him. You're sticking with that contract. Try and manage around your situation and work. We're in a better position by not making a trade. Obviously, they need defensemen, but this is the kind of deal which makes the Bowen Byram better in my eyes. Um, because with that space that the Sharks had, they could have. I mean, there's trades involving picks and stuff like that, so it gets a bit more complicated. But the Sharks had the power to get Byram if they wanted him, and they didn't. So we'll see. I don't know. It might be a new player, and he might be completely worth that money. It might be a steal, but
I
I'm
wouldn't count on it.
not honest with you.
Yeah, yeah, not a massive fan of that. Um, Minnesota, Nathaniel, have done some business. Obviously, they've had a relatively quiet off season, but they do send Jake Middleton a 2027 third round pick, a 2028 fourth round pick, and a 2029 second round pick to Calgary for Blake Coleman and Olli Mata, with 50% of Blake Coleman's retention. Salary retained by Calgary. Helps them hit the cap floor, saves Minnesota a bit of money. They get Olli Mata in there as well. Um, I mean, I'll throw it over to you, Nathaniel. I really like this deal. Don't know about you.
Mhm. I think I get sentimental to players too much. Obviously, Marco Rossi, I went through the heartbreak of him leaving. We got rid of Boyum and everything else like that. And Jake Middleton was, like 2 years ago, our first line defenseman for the most part, especially with injuries to Spurgeon. We've had injuries to Brodeen. Jake Middleton has been such a solid player for us. He's been playing on the third pairing last year with Zach Bogosian, who we have re-signed. Did we need Blake Coleman enough to get rid of the best Tash in hockey?
Oh, Philip Forsberg
I
would have something to say about that.
but Philip Forsberg
He's
is a
got the
fancy
twirler.
Tash.
He's got the twirler.
He's got the twirler. He's all show and fashionable, whereas Jake Middleton is just like
Thick.
a slug. He's got half his teeth because they keep getting knocked out. He's just an absolute monster D man. I really like him. It's sad that he goes. Blake Coleman, he's been. I mean, it's okay. Blake
I
Coleman, 50% salary.
I think give it 10 games next year. I think you will fall in love with Blake Coleman really quickly. In terms of what he can bring to a team, what he can bring to a lineup. He's a pest, he's a protector, and people won't want to take a run at Kaprizov or any of the other kind of no one will be wanting to take a run at Quinn Hughes because Blake Coleman will come and fill him in. You get Olli Mata as well, who has won multiple cups. I think for me, Mata and Middleton, not too much between them. You get your third pair guy back And Mata is very much what you see is what you get. He will play the third pair. He will play the penalty kill. He's a good penalty killer. He's a bit of a journeyman. He's been around a lot of different teams now in his career as Mata, but he plays kind of error-free, consistent, solid third pair minutes, which I kind of think is certainly what Minnesota need. I get obviously giving up sort of Jake Middleton and obviously the picks involved. But for me, Blake Coleman is your Zuccarello replacement, but he is a much better player than Zuccarello is. Obviously, with Zuccarello being at this part of his career, all I would say is give it time, because I think you'll come to like this deal a lot more once we actually see him in action in the season.
I guess with that third line in Minnesota, especially if we do get Quinn Hughes to sign, are only playing like 8 minutes a match. Um, Blake Coleman, yeah, great. I agree with all the points you've made, but we have McCarron. We've got two Folinos. We've got Yakov Trenin. We've got that protective player already there. What we're missing in the forward core is sort of depth scoring. Because other than Baldy, Kaprizov, we got rid of Zuccarello, who was our biggest playmaker, I would say. Um, I mean, we've re-signed Brink, but other than that, Minnesota are really missing on the attack side of for forwards. I don't know how else to really say it. Really, we've signed another grinder, another enforcer, another like Ryan Hartman's in this category as well. We've already got them pests, and
He
are we
he
just
can
trying to
still
be the
score.
weak version of Florida?
He can still score. He still scored 20 goals last season in 69 games on a dog shit Calgary team. Um, he got 39 points in 82 games the year before that. He got 54 points in 78 games the year before that. He had a 30 goal season. Um, just
Yeah.
kind of looking through his goals. Yeah, so from the last few years, 20, 15, 30, 18, 16, 14, 21, 22, 13. So like, he is a depth scorer. He just also has a bit of that snarl as well. So I think he can do it.
Yeah.
We'll see. I think I think he will slot into probably that third line, maybe second line. Um, I think he'll slot in quite well, and I think playing with some better players as well. I think you could see a good, a good return. I could see him hitting 20 goals next year for Minnesota, no problem.
He's a more rounded version of Tarasenko.
Yeah,
Yeah. Anyway, I'm happy to move on
yeah.
because I feel like I can. I'm just too sentimental about players. I'm glad Middleton's gone to Calgary though. Like with Perek and Carroll's coming through and
Nemec.
Nemec signing.
Yeah, yeah,
I kind of like Calgary's defense.
yeah. It's looking a lot better. Um, Florida then. We just touched on Florida. Obviously, they brought in Gudis, and they've already kind of made some quite. They've been quite active. They've lost Sergei Bobrovsky. They have brought in. Obviously, they brought in Akira Schmid from Vegas for a third round pick. Obviously, he's going through arbitration at the moment. You would imagine he's going to come in and be the backup there. But they have traded for Jacob Markstrom from the New Jersey Devils. They sent Evan Rodriguez, Jesper Boquist, and Ben Steves to the Devils. So some bottom six forwards there for Jacob Markstrom. Now Jacob Markstrom is a real enigma. You either get a guy who plays at like Vesna quality, or you get a guy who, I mean, he's just fucking awful on his day.
Yeah.
Um, so depending which version of Markstrom they get, will depend on, for me, what what they're able to, what how this deal ends up looking. Um, he's going to be playing behind a very solid, robust defense and forward core. He's going to be well protected. Obviously, he's playing in New Jersey before, which we've said constantly are like they are one of the most kind of fragile, fine china teams in the league. I think him playing behind a much more kind of robust lineup, I think we'll probably see a better Jacob Markstrom than what we've seen in New Jersey over recent years. Sorry.
I just find it interesting they've gone in this direction where they move on from Borowski, their star goaltender.
Bobrovsky!
Sorry, doxed it myself there. Bobrovsky, who's their goaltender for the Stanley Cup wins, still playing at a decent level, and he moves on to sign a 3-year, $7 million a year contract elsewhere. To replace him, they bring another player who has been good over the years, but like you've just said, has been prone to the odd horrific period of play, who has currently got 2 years left of $6 million. I would still say Bobrovsky is worth one extra year and then one extra $1 million a year contract. Keep the band together. Don't fix what isn't broken.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
yeah,
I'm just looking at Markstrom's stats from last year, which wasn't, it kind of makes some fairly ugly reading. It was a 3.07 goals against average and a 883 save percentage last year. Now, the main stat that I always think is kind of quite quite important to look at is the goals saved above expected, which that is for me like that is the most important goalie stat going. And last year, his goals saved above expected was minus 11.93. So he shipped basically 12 goals last year that he absolutely shouldn't have done. But he's someone who, over the course of his career, goals saved above expected last year, minus 11.93. The year before, plus 3.43. The year before that, plus 13.70. The year before that, minus 3.10, and then plus 10.84, and then minus 9.26. So he has like yo-yo levels of form, which would potentially lead to the fact that he's going to have a bit of a bounce back year next year in Florida. But we'll
bounce
just
back last year. The first half of his season last year was horrendous, worse than those figures have shown. And I distinctly remember him bouncing back towards the end of the year.
yeah. New
Now,
Jersey bounced back a little as a whole towards the end of the year as well, didn't they? They kind of finally managed
yeah,
to piece it together, but it was all a bit too late, wasn't it? They'd already done the damage at that point.
yeah. You tend to find in this league as well that goaltenders do tend to bounce around more so than on ice players like forwards or
Mm.
defensemen. I didn't particularly think the goaltending in Florida last year, was that bad, but they've completely swapped it round. And to back up Markstrom, they've signed Akira Schmid. Well, they traded for him. They're going for arbitration for a contract, and he wasn't doing that well in Vegas either. So now I just wondering, is this going to be the weak link for Florida going into next year? Will this work or not, or should they have just put their money where their mouth is and just paid Bobrovsky? Why
Yeah,
mess it up?
I mean,
I mean, their
you know,
cap space is very limited.
time will tell, won't it? I mean, Schmid he also had a sub 900 save percentage last year, 2.59 goals against, 8.93 goals saved above expected on the season was minus one. which is, kind of balances out kind of neutral. But, on paper, not horrendous stats, but nothing that jumps off the page. I think as well, I think we had a bit of a down year goaltending wise last year as well. There really weren't that many goaltenders that hit a 900 save percentage over the course of the year. But they'll just be having to hope that on a night to night basis, they're not having to have Markstrom. If either of these goaltenders are having to pull off 40 to 45 saves on a night to win them a game, something else has gone wrong in that lineup on the night that hasn't clicked. So we'll have to see.
What's the name of the other Florida goaltender? I don't know. It's left.
It was Tarasov.
Tarasov. Where's Tarasov gone?
I have no idea. Daniel Tarasov, is it? This is on the fly
Great.
podcasting. He is currently 1 year, $2 million deal playing for the Detroit Red Wings.
I like that. I
Yeah,
like that for Detroit.
I don't hate that at all. Nice kind of youngish goaltender to kind of come in and obviously they traded away Sebastian Kosa, so I don't hate that at all. One of the kind of final sort of big trades that we'll touch on. This is probably I think probably the sort of the last trade really we need to sort of go into. And this is kind of one that pertains a bit to yourself, as I know is a name that was bandied around an awful lot for Minnesota last year. But Vincent Trocheck has gone to Utah in exchange for Sean Durzi, Cole Bodolan, and a 2027 third round pick. That seems like a lot for Vincent Trocheck. I really like Sean Durzi. I think he's a really nice player. I know he's had kind of issues with his health, especially, which hasn't he hasn't been able to stay fit enough to stay on the ice. But Trocheck ends up in Utah. Any thoughts on that, Nathaniel? He ends up in the Central, just not on Minnesota.
I don't mind this. I don't mind this one bit. To be fair, he's not on that much money. It was a decentish trade. Utah have signed some defensemen already. So Jevan Uyghur already there, so they're sort of lined up. I just think it adds a bit of experience in his Mammoth team, who's got a great young core, and yet another team who in the Central who you would
Load up.
expect to perform well next year.
Yeah. And what about the Rangers side of this? What in terms of just looking, Sean Durzi in his 5 years in the NHL has never completed an 82 game season. 64 games, 72, 76, 30, and 60 last season. 27 points in 60 games last year.
Well, I don't know whether you've heard, but the Rangers are going for a retooling. So, like,
Of
they're
course.
still working it out. They're not blowing it up. So that they're just sort of making some tentative side steps in order to improve. I mean, the Rangers do my head in anyway. I don't really care about the
Yeah.
Rangers.
Yeah.
They've signed Sean Durzi. They got rid of Trocheck. It's been mentioned for quite a while. I'm looking at their team now, and I'm just fine. Let's say if they were in the Central Division, they'd finish dead last.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, it's quite an underwhelming roster when you look through it. Defensively, though, I think they're not too bad. You've got Fox, you've got Durzi on the right side, you've got Gavrikov. They traded for Marcus Pettersson on the left side. Braden Schneider is currently an RFA. Yeah.
Got Korpisalo, signed Korpisalo from So
I mean,
possibly
yeah, it's they kind of flatter to deceive, but yeah, I don't know. I just thought it'd be interesting to ask as someone. I know you weren't massive on the Wild trading for Trocheck last year anyway. I know he kind of wasn't your number one option. Um, so yeah, I just
he wasn't.
wanted to get your take on that.
I still think the Wild need a playmaker. Like,
Agreed.
and I'm picking splitting hairs here because we're a very good roster and we've got the players who are expected to generate the points. But in the world of you want to squeeze out every single kind of like get rid of every single need of your roster every year, that is our glaring need, I'd say.
Yeah,
And Trocheck, I don't really think is up there for me. He's good, but
not
he's
great.
not that good.
I feel like
Yeah,
they already have Trocheck at home. They've already got Eriksson Ek. I feel like he kind of does everything that Trocheck does and does it better for me, and younger. And I just don't think that he was the kind of guy that Minnesota needed. Um, Nathaniel, is there anything else you want to cover here? I think we've obviously it's been there's been all sorts of things happening. I know we've covered an awful lot today. But I don't. Is there anything else really that jumps off the page to you,
mm.
or?
I mean, we talked a lot about the match to Florida, but in return, it's obviously for Jesper Boqvist and Evan Rodriguez. I think those players will be very good for the Devils. Again, a bit more nice, shiny, fine china rather than the grit, maybe, but we'll see. Um, Detroit send a seventh round and a third round pick in future drafts to Vegas for Keegan Colasar, which is probably just a salary dump for Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, I like Kolasar. I think he's a um he again adds a bit of grit in the bottom six, which I think kind of Detroit needs a bit of. So I don't dislike that move at all. Good for Vegas
Yeah,
as well to shift the salary. Kind of works for both teams. Not that we particularly want Vegas to be shedding salary, but
that's what they do. Um, and then Toronto send Dennis Hilderby a 2027 fourth and the 2028 third for Nick Paul, uh, Logan and what's his name's brother, um, from Tampa Bay. Again, not a highly flashy move, but a notable one nonetheless.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, right. Well, like I said, we're going to be back covering, kind of covering the ins and outs, probably by division or by team or kind of, what have you. As we prepare for pre-season, shorter pre-season this year ahead of the 84 game regular season. Nathaniel, is there anything else further from yourself before we wrap this up?
I'm just going to see how many days we have to wait for NHL preseason to start. When do they normally start playing again?
I know the Blackhawks released their preseason schedule, and I think their first game I want to say is maybe like the 18th of September or something.
Oh,
So still got a couple of months. Still got a couple of months before we.
yeah, September the 19th around.
2 months.
It might be a slog these next 2 months.
Well, we've got enough exciting things in the pipeline to tie us over, I'm sure, and to tie you all
We
over who are
certainly do.
listening. We
We
certainly do.
certainly do. I just want to watch hockey again. Like
Yeah, me
night
too.
time. There's
Me
nothing
too.
like a bit of a 10 p.m. kickoff and like watching some sport at night. I don't know. It's missing it over these summer months.
Right, man. Shall I sign us out?
Yeah, sign us out.
Quick little drink before I do. As always, guys, you can find us on both X and Instagram at the PBP Podcast. You can find us on TikTok at Penalty Box Perspective. You can get in touch with us on Gmail at penaltyboxperspective@gmail.com if you've got any thoughts or feelings on the show, or if you want to get in touch with us about anything at all. If you want to watch the podcast in video format, you can do so on either Spotify or on our YouTube channel at the Penalty Box Perspectives official YouTube page. If you want to give us a 5-star review on either Apple Podcasts or Spotify, if you want to drop us a like or a subscription on YouTube as well, they're free to do, and it helps me and Nathaniel out massively. Stick with us over the off-season, guys. I know it's a grind. We've got some really exciting things in the pipeline, hopefully coming your way. Stick with us. We'll see you next time. Have a good one, and take it easy.